I was sitting in my accountant's office looking at a number on a page, and my practice had almost produced over $1 million that year. And my personal take home, well, y'all, that was a completely different story. So I'm asking my accountant, why? And he gave me an answer, but if I'm honest, I really didn't understand it. I just pretended it made sense, and I absolutely said nothing. And that feeling stuck with me. So you know what your girl did? I figured out what I needed to know, and I figured out a formula, a real one, with variables I could actually control. That formula is how I changed how I ran my practice, how I paid myself, and eventually how I got out of the chair. And I'm gonna teach you that formula right now. It's called the Freedom Math Formula. And if you own a practice and you are not using this, you are leaving your own money on the table every single month. If you own a dental practice that is generating real revenue and you still feel financially stressed, this video is for you. Doctors, this is not because you were failing, because no one really ever taught us the math that actually determines how much of that revenue should become your own. Today, I'm going to walk you through the Freedom Math Formula, which is a calculation I use to figure out what my practice actually needed to produce for me to get paid, not what I needed it for payroll, not what I needed for overhead, what I needed. And as the owner, as the person that took all the risks, I think I definitely deserved a paycheck, and so do you. Stick around to the end because I'm going to show you how you can calculate your own number. And I don't want you to walk out of this video with a guess. I want you to walk out this video with a real target. Welcome to the Dr. Freedom Practice. I am Dr. Simone Ellis, a retired dentist, freedom strategist, and the person who figured this out the hard way so you don't have to. All right, so in dental school, they taught us how to make dentistry. I don't know if they even taught you really how to collect or grow a practice, but I know for damn sure that they did not teach us how to actually generate, when the practice generates money, the moment that it hits your pocket, and the gap that keeps so many of us stressed out no matter how well your practice is doing. And when I had my practice, my clinical schedule was popping, it was full, my providers were producing, my collections were strong, and I was still looking at my bank account like something had gone wrong. I remember having visceral gut reactions when I would look at my account and I'd be like, wow, why did we do $100,000 or $200,000 and I don't have any money in my paycheck? And for me, I got to a point where I was afraid to even look at my bank account. I created this whole avoidance personality around my finances because every time I looked, I felt like it was evidence that I was failing, even though my practice was saying otherwise. And the thing is, I don't think I was really spending recklessly. It was that I never had actually calculated what I needed to take home. And I was producing towards a number that my consultants had set or my colleagues said that I should be chasing, but that made my practice look successful on paper. But that was never my number. So the first piece of the Freedom Math Formula, and I call it the freedom number, is your freedom number is exactly the amount your personal income you need to take home every single month. And I don't want you guys to just pick a number that you just need to survive or not to be comfortable, but the number that actually makes you feel free. This is not your overhead number. This is not your payroll number. This is your mortgage, your savings contributions, your retirement, your actual life, the numbers that actually cover the life you've built this practice to fund. And when I talk to clients, probably 80% of them, when they first start with me, have never calculated this. And it's not because you guys aren't smart, but it's because we were never taught to. We were taught to measure our success by what the practice does, and not what actually reaches us. So the first thing you have to do is you have to pull the last month's bank statements and go through them line by line. And docs, I know this feels uncomfortable, and I know it's going to require courage to face those numbers honestly, but this is the foundation. And if we do not do this number right, everything after this we're going to build is going to be a guess. What is your freedom number when you finally calculate it? What did it feel like when you wrote that number down for the first time? This is proof that the formula is real. And I want to make sure that you feel that that number, if it made you scared, if it made you anxious, good, because we actually now have a physical number to shoot for. Once you've gotten your freedom number, you can actually reverse engineer what your practice needs to produce. And this is where you start to get really clarifying, because what you're going to do is you're going to take your freedom number, you're going to add it to your fixed practice's overhead. That's including like your rent, your payroll, your lab, your supplies, everything. And then you're going to build it at a minimum of 10 to 15% buffer for savings and reinvestment. That is your total real monthly production target. It's not a goal that someone just handed to you. And this is the part that shifts how you show up to work, because most practices are running without this number. They're setting a production target based off of capacity or historical averages or what some DSO says should be the benchmark. And nobody is having the conversation that is asking, what does the actual owner need to take home for this to be all worth it? This is why you can still produce $1 million and still feel broke. You are producing towards someone else's number. You are not producing towards your own. That was an aha moment for myself. I remember having people tell me, oh, I should do this number and this number. And then I realized I didn't actually have my number included in that. I needed to understand where my gap was. What was the gap? Once that changed, we started actually producing towards the right target. When you know your production target and it's built around your actual freedom number, now every decision you are making in the practice has a reference point. You stop that feeling of like chasing. You actually start building towards something real. Now, this next piece is the one that most practice owners are going to completely skip, and it's the piece that determines whether any of this math actually changes your day-to-day life, or is it just living in a spreadsheet? What is your freedom hourly rate? Your freedom hourly rate is the minimum your time is worth inside your own practice. And here's how you calculate it. I want you to take your freedom number and divide it by the number of hours you actually want to work each month. That is your floor. That's the minimum value your time needs to be generating. Now, take that number and run it against every single task in your practice that you're doing right now. That's exactly what I said. So if that number gives you $200 and you run it against the task of running and going doing groceries, I want you to think about that. Is that a freedom hour rate? Like, is that task of going to the grocery stores worth $200? If what you are doing right now does not specifically require you or isn't generating that number above that freedom hourly rate, it should not be on your plate. And that's what I call the CEO filter. When I ran that through myself on my own schedule, like really was honest with your girl, less than 30% of what I was doing actually required me. The rest was just operator work. And this kind of work that keeps you in building, it keeps you exhausted, it keeps you from the income cap that you deserve because your time is being spent actually below value. Your freedom hourly rate tells you exactly where that line is. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every meeting that you're sitting in, every task that you're completing, every phone call you are taking, you will know immediately where it belongs on your schedule because now you know that value to all those things. Y'all, this changed my whole life because when I actually understood what my freedom hourly rate is, I stopped doing a lot of things. That cord that I just had to pack because nobody could pack it, that to me was a $20 an hour task. That wasn't a $600 an hour task, right? The most common mistake I see when doctors run this formula for the first time is that they calculate the numbers, they feel the clarity, and then they do nothing with that information because that number reveals something so uncomfortable. That number reveals that the practice as it exists cannot produce what the owner actually needs, or reveals that the hours that the owner is spending on tasks that are worth a fraction of what he or she is capable of generating. And instead of responding to that with a plan, they just close the spreadsheet. Docs, this is where the work begins. It's not in the knowing, it's in the building. The formula gives you a target. What you do with that target is the difference between a practice that gets paid and one that just keeps you busy. If you want to go deeper into this and actually see where your practice is losing time and money, I want you to take our Stress and Leadership Scorecard in the link below because it's going to help you reveal some of those things. It's only 10 minutes and it's the first thing that I will walk through with every single client I work with. The link is in the description below. When I sat in my accountant's office and I looked at that number, what I felt wasn't embarrassment, it was clarity. I finally had something real to build towards. Guys, you built this practice. You took the risk, you signed the lease, you hired the team, and you show up every single day. You deserve to get paid like a CEO that you are, not an employee that is in your own building. Docs, I want you to calculate your freedom number. I want you to build your production targets around it and protect your time like it's worth something because it is. If this video hits home, the next video, how to build a practice that pays like a CEO, is where you should go. That's where we take these 3 numbers and actually create an operating system around them. So go watch it next, like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.